Hey, it's Pastor Dan from Dexter Gospel Church. Thanks for watching this Proverbs Practical. Today's proverb talks about the consequences of failing to avoid the strange woman. We're in Proverbs chapter 5, verse 10. It says, "Lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger." So this whole portion of chapter 5 is warning us about one of the great dangers and villains of the book of Proverbs, the strange woman. This is the person and the temptation to adultery and away from faithfulness and right relationships. We're not supposed to treat this as a casual threat. We're supposed to avoid that temptation as much as possible. This is because the consequences of giving into it are so devastating. This verse gives us the next set of those likely outcomes. The Israelite didn't mind if his children were filled with his wealth. He might not even mind sustaining his neighbors, his people, but for people who didn't even know him, strangers, who didn't care about him or his family or his people, who would never remember him, to be filled with his possessions, to them that would be a terrible fate, a tragedy. The stranger could be a foreigner, someone who didn't even believe in or worship their God, someone who wasn't even part of their nation. God's blessings, that wealth under the covenant, were supposed to be for those who were part of Israel or joined themselves to Israel. For those blessings to go to a stranger would mean that something was wrong with their covenant with God. It might even mean that they had lost their land, were under the judgment of God, were under oppression and occupation. It's definitely true that if marriage and family are weakened, so is the fabric of the society of a nation, making it vulnerable to its enemies. The Israelite might not mind working his labors for his father or his wife's father. He didn't mind working for the good of his people. He might even be a servant, but in service to one of his countrymen, he still had rights. He had the expectation of freedom someday, and he was working for the good of his nation, his people, his family. But if he were sold into the service of a stranger, none of that might be true anymore. If his land was taken over by people who didn't follow God's laws about servants and workers, to be under that rule would be oppressive. It was like his life became meaningless. Again, it would mean that something had gone wrong with not just him and his life and his family, but with the whole nation and the covenant between them and their God. And when our integrity is gone through adultery, and again I think in the broader sense of not being faithful, whether to a spouse or to God or some other sacred commitment, what is our life worth? What good are all the things that we accrue? Others will benefit, people who don't know us and don't care about us. Keep the integrity of your heart and keep away from the sweet-sounding temptations that would lure you to unfaithfulness, because they will destroy your life. Instead of happiness, those temptations away from faithfulness lead to the emotional state of the next verses that we'll see in our next video. I hope this video is a help to you. If so, give it a like. If you haven't already, follow our channel for more content from the Scriptures. We'd love to see you in the comments, and we'd love to see you in person here at Dexter Gospel Church. Till next time, I hope you stay well and maintain your integrity.